And that leads us to board reports. A friendly reminder to my colleagues and the public, I just want to make sure you're aware of this as well. We had a governance workshop meeting on Saturday, and to update our governance manual and protocols, we unanimously agreed to abide by a 5-minute limit, and we've incorporated that addition into our governance handbook. So let me just pause and see if we have a timekeeper. There it is. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, I have a point of order.
Yes.
I understood that to be a proposed policy change. I was never under the understanding that we were going to do this immediately. That I was understanding that we're going to make a policy changes. I need protections. I need protections about what you said about passing on minutes to each other. It needs to be a 5 minutes for all, not a little trick about giving each other 2 minutes, 3 minutes. But it needs to be in policy. It needs to carry the weight of the board that way.
I'm hearing is that a question?
No, that's a point of order.
So you're claiming that you did not know we would start that today, even though we agreed to that on Saturday?
Agreed. I thought it was an agreement to change policy, to bring it back, and to have a full discussion on. And don't look confused, Irma, because if we're going to put restrictions on speech and everyone's speech, because the whole conversation was about limiting speech on everybody.
No, that's not
And that conversation was brought up. You were going to give the union group, so I want a policy discussion.
Well, I think this is an opportunity to express courage over comfort, because I thought, and maybe I'm wrong, but I thought we had found consensus as a board on Saturday, right here in this very room, that we would start tonight, given the length of this meeting and given the substance, and that it would be a trial basis for about 6 months, and then we would come back in March at our March 14th study session to evaluate this new change, and that it would be in our protocols, which doesn't require board policy subcommittee review. It's in our governance handbook, and so that was my understanding. And do any other colleagues have a different understanding of that? Yes, Mr. Lopez? And Ms. Rodriguez.
Thank you. For one, the suggestions were made to change our board policy, Mr. Chair. Now, my understanding is to bring it back to us to approve it. Now, we did not take a formal vote at the study session, Mr. Chair. There was somewhat of a consensus. I agree with you, but that was my understanding, to bring it back to the policy as well, to just take a formal vote, and so the public can have an opportunity to see what our new procedures are in terms of when it comes to our turn to make our report. Thank you.
I see. Thank you for sharing your perspective. Who is next? Ms. Rodriguez is next, and then Ms. Mitchell.
My recollection is that, in fact, it was a 5-0 vote, that we would agree to limit ourselves to 5 minutes. I think given the confusion or the disagreement that we have, I would be open that we would start next month. I have no interest in cutting off anybody's speech tonight. If people want to speak longer, it is a very busy agenda, but I will speak in support of our board president that we did take, it was a 5-0 vote specifically that our facilitator noted. But again, I'm interested in moving forward and listening to each other, and if it comes back in October so that we can do it, I'm fine with that. And if somebody speaks for half an hour tonight and the board comments, I'll sit here and listen. But my recollection is that in fact we took a 5-0 vote, that we would start, and it in fact would go for about 6 months, and we would reevaluate.
Thank you for your comments. Ms. Mitchell.
That was my recollection as well. I know that it was unanimous in terms of our acceptance of the 5 minute, and we even talked about having an actual timer so we could visually see when we're going to be cut off. There was conversation about if we were willing to render part of our 5 minutes to one of our colleagues, and then that didn't seem to be very popular. But from my recollection, the consensus was, and it was all of us, it wasn't even partial, it was all of us that agreed to a 5-minute limit.
And Mr. Chair, I
Would
need
you like to go next,
to,
Mr. Mendez?
I need to remind you,
You may begin.
I need to remind you that an action by the board has to be agendized and voted on and noticed. And that did not occur. It was not on the agenda. It was not amending a policy. And so you need to follow the process, because if you're agreeing and you're saying it was not agendized, it was not, the vote was not taken, there was no roll call, I think you're inviting yourself to a potential Brown Act violation again.
I see, thank you for your comments.
Sure.
I listened to you.
Pleasure.
And I appreciate you motioning to be called upon when you'd like to speak.
Sure, thank you.
In keeping with our protocols that we
Of course.
just updated on Saturday. And I'm going to make this comment really short, and I tend to agree with Trustee Rodriguez Moisa that it's not worth arguing about tonight, and we'll come back to this another time. But the fact that we have a time screen right there is evidence that it's something that we agreed to, that we were prepared to operationalize our new protocols tonight. But hence, that's okay. And if people are entitled to have a change of heart and a change of mind from Saturday until today, and I get that.
There's been no change of heart, no
Sir,
change of mind.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, would you like to speak to this?
yes, Mr. Chair, in terms of change of heart, change of mind, I don't know about such. Now, if you change of policy, change of protocol, now that's a great discussion. But you want to try to characterize someone's change of heart, we can go on forever. Thank you.
Thank you. So we will begin our board reports tonight without the 5-minute limit that we agreed to. And we will agendize this as needed in the future. So I'll start to my far right. Mr. Mendez, do you have a report tonight?
I'll go second to the last, please, after Irma. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'll go.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez.
Good evening, everyone. Mr. Chair and colleagues, I'll be brief and to the point. I'm going to pivot away from my comments on past themes. Times are changing in this country as we know it. Just yesterday, Supreme Court ruled on a 6-3 vote in the case of Nome versus Vasquez-Perdomo in favor of racial profiling and to lower the bar of reasonable suspicion. This ruling changes the landscape of how government and others will be treating certain segment of the U.S. population, Latinos and those that look Latino. Let me read the dissent from Justice Sotomayor. We should not have to live in a country where the government can seize anyone who looks Latino, speaks Spanish, and appears to work a low-wage job. Rather stand idly while our constitutional freedoms are lost. I dissent. Let that sink in, colleagues. This quote is from our Supreme Court Justice. There's another quote from Newsom on this decision, quote unquote. It's about targeting Latinos. This decision is wrong in so many ways. It's on the wrong side of due process and justice. Let's remember that a high school student was comprehended by ICE agents as they mistook him for someone else and held him at gunpoint near this high school. I say to our Whittier Union families and students that are worried about being targeted. I'm worried too. I understand and support you, but yet, let's stay informed. Attend workshops like family separation plan, power of attorney, know your rights. Let's remember, preparation is a form of coping with this situation. Another form of coping is to register and vote. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez.
Thank you for that, Mr. Lopez. the immigration issue is something that we all have in common. You know, we might not agree on everything in our processes or perspectives, but as the issue on immigration and the impact that it has in our community is one that we for sure agree upon. I have shared in a past meeting that my family has been personally impacted by an ICE situation. And it has devastated my sister's family. It has devastated all of our family. And when I heard, you know, what the Supreme Court decided on yesterday, I kept thinking about my father, who oftentimes goes to Home Depot with his sombrero to, you know, that's his favorite spot to go, and how vulnerable my father is. I think about myself, and you know, because people oftentimes assume that I don't speak English, especially if I'm not wearing work clothes, and how vulnerable I can be as an individual. Why? You know, because I look a certain way, because I choose to speak Spanish or Spanglish, and so it really concerns me. It concerns me about our students. It concerns me about their families. It concerns me about my community, because we're primarily Latino in this community. And so we are targets. There have been a really strong presence of ICE in the near past. A lot of our community people have disappeared because they've been detained. I hear it at our church. You know, I go to Our Lady of Perpetual Help, and some families are even so afraid to get out that they don't even go purchase their food anymore. They have neighbors doing it. The church has organized purchases for families. What does that tell you? And when I've mentioned, and I've mentioned this particularly in end of the year event, I mentioned what I see in terms of the common practices between World War II Germany and what's happening right now. And I had somebody, a parent, come up to me and, you know, and basically scolded me for putting on that perspective. But that perspective hasn't changed for me. It becomes even more evident when I see that my community is being targeted, when I see that brown people are being targeted, specifically Latinos, Mexican descent, Latinos in general. And so I do want you to know that we do care. Our board does care about our students. It is on our top concern in terms of how do we connect with national organizations, other leaders, to keep our families protected, to keep our students protected. I want our students to have a really positive educational experience. I don't want them to be afraid to go to school, or to feel like if they go to school, they're gonna be a target. And so my pledge as a trustee is to really be, you know, supportive of our students, of our families as much as I can, to bring in those national connections, to really, you know, support policies that are going to protect them against this injustice. It's really hard for me now to do the Pledge of Allegiance, especially that part where it says, "and justice for all." In my brain, I say injustice for most, because it's not being equitable right now.
Thank you, Ms. Michelle. Appreciate your report. Mr. Rodriguez-Muesa, do you have a report?
I do. I'm not going to comment too much on the current state of the ICE enforcements, because we have our resolution, so I'm going to reserve most of my comments for when we address that resolution. I only just want to say, for those of you who aren't here, I was a civil rights lawyer for the Mexican American Legal Defense and Educational Fund for almost 5 years. I helped litigate Prop 190 against Prop 194 back in 1994 and 1995. And I have served on the board of directors of MALDIF as a board president in a variety of different officer positions, and currently on the board. So just know we are all united on this board on this issue. There is no disagreement with respect to what's going on in our country. But I want to pivot my report to a couple things related to district business and one that's sort of not related to district business. I have unfortunately been having the period of time in my career where I have been extremely busy with work demands over the last month and a half, almost 2 months. And as a result, I have missed out on some of my favorite events of being a board member, which is attending back to school nights, saying hello, really just seeing all the energy that are at the schools. So I apologize to our administrators that I was not able to make it to any of your schools this year. I promise you'll be there next year. And I'm looking forward to site visits. I have committed to Dr. Oviedo. She's already given me the schedule that I will be out to visit the schools this year to make up for, unfortunately, having that very busy work commitment. I want to touch on a positive event in my life over the course of the last board meeting, since the last board meeting. And I want to touch on it because I think in this very dark time, you still have to find those beautiful things that give you hope. My grandmother turned 96 years old 2 weeks ago. And she looks hell good. and I have a couple photos if anybody wants to see her. And it was incredible to have the family come together and celebrate her life. And obviously, my grandfather had passed many, many years ago. And my aunts and my uncles and dancing. My parents danced so hard, my dad had to sit down. He practically had, I don't know what happened, he just got really tired. But I have a video of him too. But I want us to make sure that during these challenging times, we also take the time to value those people who are close to us and are important. And so happy birthday, Mama Mona, who is my grandma. And I also want to now sort of pivot a little bit to Mr. Torres' statement in his public comment. Because it's so great to see him, and I know he's not here, because so many times we saw him sitting in this chair, and there were times he's made a few challenging statements, and we went back and we said challenging statements back, and it's just great to see that he took to heart, like we take to heart, focus on the issues, not the people. And to have him challenge us to make sure that we make decisions, that we always ask ourselves, are we doing what's right and what's best for our students? I will pick up that mantra for him. And in that spirit, I want to share with you another very unfortunate thing that happened in my life over the last 4 to 6 weeks, which is I had a very dear friend pass away, Joseph Castro. And I want to tell you just briefly about Joe, because I am going to ask our board to close in his memory. I met Joe Castro when we were rising seniors in high school at the Chicano Latino Youth Leadership Program in Sacramento, sort of the Chicano boy state, girl state. And we tease to this day that I ran for president of it, and of course I won, but he was my campaign manager. And when we reunited at UC Berkeley, we ended up living together at Casa Joaquin Murrieta, which is a student co-op owned and operated by Latino students there on the campus. And I lived down at Casa Joaquin Murrieta for 2 years, and Joe ended up living there all his years in college. But when Joe left Cal, he went on to an incredible career in higher education. I'm going to share with you briefly what he accomplished, and really, quite frankly, what his presence, what his spirit was, is also going to drive me this year as we look at this very challenging year ahead. What is going to drive me in my decision making? He began his career at the University of California Office of Governmental Relations in Sacramento before serving in leadership and faculty roles at 5 UC campuses: Berkeley, Davis, Merced, Santa Barbara, and San Francisco. At UCSF, he rose to Vice Chancellor of Student Academic Affairs, and he was Professor of Family and Community Medicine, where he devoted himself to advancing student success and equity at one of the world's leading health science institutions. He then went on to UC Santa Barbara, where he's also Vice Chancellor. And then eventually he became the President and Chancellor of Cal State Fresno, and he was from the Valley. He was from a small town in Hanford. And even though Oxnard seems big now, which is where I grew up, back then Oxnard was a small town with had 80,000 people, full of fields, and so I very much connected with my friends from the Central Valley. But what Joe taught all of us who knew him, and he got a master's degree from Cal, he went on to Stanford to get his PhD in educational leadership. He ended up at the time of his death serving as an advisor on the Board of Education, on the Board of Trustees for the School of Education at Stanford. He was an advisor to Michael Drake, the UC president, but he was the president of Cal State Fresno at a time that it was at a crossroads and what it was building. And the energy and the spirit and the academic success really inspires the rest of us, because what Joe taught us is to be a good listener. What Joe taught us is to put students first in all of your decision making. And what he taught us was be humble and listen. And so I honor my friend Joe tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mendez. Mr. Mendez, do you have a report tonight?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I want to thank you, Mr. Renteria. I'm very interested in taking that AI class because I know that I need it. I don't really understand what the young folks are doing with it. I heard that they're getting good grades as a result of it. And so I hope to be able to sit in that class at adult education and take that. Lunch, I'm really concerned about staff, especially bus drivers who have a limited time to maybe take lunch, that whether or not we're providing lunches at cost. And I'm really concerned about it. I'd like to see some of the lowest paid workers get that at cost, lunch. I'm really concerned about some of the comments I heard today, and I want to thank all the commenters for all the contributions they made tonight. But I don't want to be, I represent a working class, South Whittier, parts of Santa Fe Springs and North Norwalk, low income, working class, and in some cases, the working poor. And so with that, you know, I'm concerned about whether or not we're union busting. And so I want some information to maybe dispel it if that's not the case, or to acknowledge it if we are union busting. Because as a union supporter, and that's a very important issue for me at least. So we get something. I was at the quasi student protest at Santa Fe High. It was put on Instagram, so I said, oh, what a good opportunity to go and support students. I'm all for protesting. As a young man, I did that. All the immigrant rights marches in downtown and in the Central Valley I've got to go to, so I know the value of that. However, the protest was in the morning, and they had posted a 3 o'clock after school. No one showed up, but it was a good exercise because some community people got that same post and showed up. I think that was a good thing for community people to stand in front of the high school to see whether students were going to exercise their right. So I would always encourage that. Immigration, my grandma used to tell me she got swept up and deported when she was picking strawberries over here in Santa Monica. And could you imagine a third generation Latina being deported to Tijuana? And that was quite an experience. However, I haven't gone through 187. I know what it's like to be pulled over by Whittier PD and ask about where were you born, where'd you come from, where you going? And for me and my brown friends to have to go through that experience, and it's so sad to see videos where it's affecting families. But Dr. Viedo, I would like to see, I've seen little bits and pieces of how Whittier Union is going to respond, little, I think, posts you put on social media. But I'd like a comprehensive, put all that information together to give us an idea of what that plan looks like, what that plan of response is, what happens when ICE pulls up across the street from a high school, what happens. And so it'd be nice to see what that response would look like. For the last 3 months, I've been getting training by We the People, a statewide organization that's responding to the ICE raids, and also Union de Barrio. And I went on a couple of rides 2 weeks ago at WUHSD by volunteer teachers and staff members who get up at 5 a.m. to start their patrol at 6 o'clock, patrolling various schools and starting the practice of documenting and alerting schools on whether ICE is present in their community. I plan to do that here in South Whittier. My limit's going to be kind of South Whittier because we have small volunteers. And because a big rush is going to come in October when all those new ICE agents will be deployed here in Los Angeles County. And so there's this community part. I'm very proud of this resolution and what the board is doing, but there's a community component to keeping families and students safe. And as we've been informed about the responsibility to and from a house, how important that is. But there's a community component, and you're gonna see that there's quite a bit of community people that have been trained by these organizations on how to document and patrol for ice raids. That's coming in October, so we should expect something. On the limited speech, I know we had a little conversation. There was some issues that were brought up in that kind of concerned me, whether or not you could share minutes, whether or not constituent groups in front of us were going to be limited in speech. So it's best that that's put in policy form. And I would like to be guaranteed is that it's 5 minutes total, period. That it's not accumulate extra minutes from a person. If we're gonna stick to that, and you wanna be equitable, is that we all have 5 minutes. 9310, it's a board policy. I confirmed today that September 22nd, I believe we're gonna meet. And just to remind, the last time we visited 9310, it was on second reading. The policy committee that was assigned that went through all the process, sat with the superintendent and got input from the administration's perspective. And so that's where we last left off, so we'll go from there. But this is really important, this policy. It guarantees participatory governance at Whittier Union, assuring that all constituent groups have a seat at the table when there's a policy being revised, proposed, that relates to them. So, should we want to do something regarding school spirit? Is that students would be invited in that process to look at the proposed policy, and they can input, and then it goes through the process, and eventually comes up here. I think this is a very good thing, participatory governance. It involves everybody, and I kind of understood it kind of happened informally, and it happened anyway in most places. But this guarantees that various constituent group students, CSE staff and teachers, do indeed have input into policy development. I think it's a good thing. I think most, the superintendent and the chairman agreed that it was a good thing, so what we get forward with that. I'm also very interested and concerned about closing the academic divide, and there's quite a few of them, but especially regarding to Latino males. Latino males are underperforming. There's issues with that, and I strongly encourage the district to look at hiring more Latino counselors. Why Latino counselors? Everybody is a counselor, a counselor is a counselor. Well, I don't believe that entirely. So I was an at-risk student going to Whittier High School, and I was raised by a single-parent mother, primarily, mentored by my grandmother, who was my best friend. They knew that there's certain things that a man had to talk to me about. That one man to the other, that advice was asked, advice was given, and that strengthened my ability to empower myself. And that includes identifying with people who've been through life experience, cultural experience, the same as you. And I think in those occasions where we're dealing with Latino males who are underperforming, who need help, is that those Latino males will be able to help with that experience, with their life experience. I brought this up at the retreat, and the response was, we only hire qualified people. We only hire qualified people. Well, I think you can find qualified Latino counselors. I don't think Latino, because of a Latino male, or because Latino is not qualified. I heard that at Rio Hondo in 1999, when 75% of the hirings were people of non-color, and that all changed in the year with the changing of the board. And so I think it reflects our values to be able to hire some males that can identify with the experience of at-risk Latino males. So I strongly encourage that. Also, I'd like to ask the chairman if he could agendize for a closed session an issue regarding BP 4020. And in BP 420, alcohol and drug-free workplace, no employee shall unlawfully manufacture, distribute, dispense, possess, use or be under the influence of alcoholic beverages, drug, or controlled substance. That's not only a board policy, it's federal code, and it's state law. I think we need to discuss this, and then I'll be satisfied. I grew up in a house with domestic violence that was triggered by alcohol abuse, and I think that, I believe in this board policy. However, I believe this board policy needs to be applied equally. Everybody is under this board policy. There's no exceptions. There should be no exception. No board member should be accepted, no administrator, no teacher, no staff member, no bus driver is having a drug and alcohol-free workplace. Has to be applied to everybody. No exceptions, because the danger of alcohol is horrible. Have you ever had anybody in your family die of alcohol abuse when their organs cease to function and they slowly die from their organs failing? It's a horrible death, but it's the victims who really pay. It's the children who have to see the abuse by the alcohol abuser, the abuse that they put on a family. And it may be that the kids are not touched at all, but the fact that they see their mother or one of their parents beat up on a daily, weekly basis, alcohol is horrible. And so I would like the chair to agendize, and he knows what I'm talking about, because we need to discuss this. Okay, I had a community concern, and it was a community concern that kind of rekindled about the cleanliness of schools, especially in Cal High. And I understand is that the person lives near there, and when kids get out of school and they walk, you're going to find trash there. And it's probably when the person sees it that's kind of what the person sees. But I also understand is that, I want to know more about how those resources are allocated and about staffing, if whether or not what percentage of staffing are we for custodial staff and landscaping staff. This community member wanted to know if whether equal resources were applied to all schools for landscaping and for cleanup. And I think the fact that he's a taxpayer and has a child in school, that's good enough for me to try to find out. So if I could get some type of information on staffing. I know that some schools are larger than others and take more work. So if we could please get that. To remind the chair is that there's 2 outstanding complaints that needs to be agendized. I talked to legal counsel, and I was told that the chair was talked to and that this could very well be agendized, but it was not agendized for this meeting. And it was regarding some of the disparaging comments that were made at a board member at last year's retreat. So it's been a year now. I think if we could agendize that, I'd really appreciate it. When we look at the governance manual and we talk about how we treat each other, that applies to everybody. And whether you're part of the majority or not, I think it applies to how we treat it by everybody. So if you would please do that. And that's it. That's my report. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your report, Mr. Mendez. My report, I will try to be streamlined. When you reach this point, the temptation is to address everything you've seen and heard, but I'm going to try not to do that because we have other agenda items later this evening that we need to go through out of respect to everyone's time. So let me just start with reflecting upon the 3 employee reports that I heard tonight. I want to thank the 3 of you for being so reflective, self-aware, introspective, because I see that not as a challenge. I had a spiritual director one time that said, whenever someone challenges you, think of it as an invitation to grow. So the comments I've heard tonight, not just from you, but from my colleagues and speakers, commenters, and even our very own Whittier Union family of students, they're all invitations to grow. And so I appreciate your reminders to grow. I appreciate the apology that was given and sincerely expressed. The the kudos given to our students and the reminders that you have multiple roles as parents and as leaders. And every perspective you bring is so valuable. And I appreciate your courage and your willingness to not only to be present, but to lead on top of your job. So I want to thank the three of you for saying yes to leadership even through difficult times. And that brings me to Saturday. Saturday, in this very room, you may have heard earlier, we actually had a study session, a workshop, if you will, with the CSBA consultant to be able to go through our governance protocols. We want to be able to grow. We want to be better at governance. We realize that we have a lot to learn as a collective and maybe individually too. And I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Olga for all of your hard work getting us ready. Luann Berman Rivera mentioned you by name, and we all agreed and said thank you, Olga, for all of your work, not only getting us ready for that day, but for all the board meetings. So I appreciate you. Dr. Oviedo, thank you so much for being present and helping us to plan for that day. Very much needed. And colleagues, thank you for being present and for giving up your Saturday morning to be with us. And we went through an exercise, and we had all our Post-it notes on the wall where we recognized all the things that we have in common. And each of us was invited to share things that we have in common. And you could fill up a couple of those big easels with all the things that we mentioned. And I hold to that now in this moment because, and that leads me to my next topic, and that's really discussing the Supreme Court ruling yesterday. And I do want to echo my colleagues when I hear them say we're united on this issue of protecting our students and making sure that we secure a safe learning environment for our students, for our staff, for our employees. We are united. And I'm very grateful that we remain united in this issue. It's so important. And a lot of times when adversity strikes a board, you really learn a lot about how strong that board is and how strong that district is by how they respond to adversity. And I believe we are going to continue to respond to whatever adversity comes our way, whether it's this week or next month or next year. We will remain united, and we will continue to prioritize the safety of all of our students, regardless of their immigration status, regardless of their background. And I want to thank the board for your unity on that issue, especially with respect to all the work we did at our special board meeting back on August 11th. Third, or fourth at this point, I want to be able just to let the community know that I attended back to school nights at Whittier High School and Pioneer High School. It was so good to reconnect, to be able to have conversations with parents and to really feel the pulse of the campus. To appreciations, I want to give appreciation to the facilities and grounds crew and staff and teachers, administrators that made these campuses look as alive as they did. And all the students greeting the guests was a nice touch. So thank you, Ms. Chapman. Thank you, Mr. Favela, for your hospitality. And I hope to make it to the back to school nights that are still coming up. I think we have one more this Thursday. And then I'm looking forward to our board policy subcommittee on September 22nd. It's been a long time coming. I'm glad we found a date that works for all parties. And I'm looking forward to the State of the District on October the 1st as well. And then I wanted to address Mr. Rodriguez, you're commenting on the need for affordable food. I was reminded that I sit on the board of Interfaith Food Center, and I was reminded by the executive director that they've started working more closely with Los Gatos School District on making sure that they have affordable, healthy food options for the parents and families that are not coming to school, and so they're making deliveries. And they're also starting, I believe, to work with the employees at Los Gatos. So I'm hoping that maybe a connection can be made between CSDA and any members that you believe need access to affordable, healthy food options and Interfaith Food Center, because the executive director and the development director both expressed an interest in reaching out to all the school districts, not just Los Gatos. So they want to reach out to South Whittier, Little Lake, and of course Whittier Union. And I believe Dr. Oviedo has the contact information for our the IFC. So I just wanted to mention that as a possibility. I heard that concern. And then lastly, I'll wrap up here. I just want to be able to state that I'm really looking forward to getting an update on the Performing Arts Center, which is going to be going up just a couple blocks away, or a couple of yards away, I should say. I was going to say a stone's throw, but I can't throw a stone that way. But in terms of being able to recognize possibly discussing a groundbreaking. I think waiting until ribbon cutting is a long time to wait. I know this is a project that's been long awaited by a lot of folks. We've had faculty and we've had students, employee groups, members of the community, parents involved in all the work leading to this project, and it is the crowning jewel of this part of our bond, and so I really want to celebrate that. So I don't want to give a one-person directive, so I don't know if there's consensus for this, and I'm not going to make eye contact and look for nods because I want to be mindful of the Brown Act. But Dr. Oviedo, if you believe that there's interest on this, not just from me, but from the collective, and that's something that would very much like to see or maybe hear more about in the weeks to come. And I'll conclude my comments right there. Thank you very much. And so now we pivot to Dr. Oviedo, Superintendent's report.
Thank you. So good evening. First and foremost, I want to thank everyone. Oh, let me start my timer. I want to thank everyone in making Lucerna's Williams facility visit an extraordinary success. The school earned a 95.595 score with special accolades for their recently completed interior LED lighting and carbon monoxide sensors. Their success would not have been possible without the tireless efforts of their custodial team led by Lucerna's Employee of the Year, Juan Hurtado, and the district's operations crew led by Stephen Rodriguez and Sunny Argot, who worked closely with Assistant Principal Randy Castillo and Principal Griselda Castro. Lucerna's instructional materials visit is scheduled for early October, and we anticipate that will go just as smoothly. Next, I want to share that the Sunday's El Grito, co-sponsored by the Hispanic Outreach Task Force, was a great success. More than, or just under 1,000 people, I believe, were present, with great entertainment from Mariachis Colibri and Angeles de Pepe Martinez Jr., with additional performances by the Rio Hondo Theater Group and Ballet Folklorico Así es mi tierra. A special thanks to Whittier's principal, Mr. Favela, for graciously stepping in at the last moment to serve as the afternoon's master of ceremonies. Thank you so much. This Thursday marks our final back-to-school night, taking place at Santa Fe High at 5:30 in their gym. In addition to a busy fall schedule with athletics, several of our schools will be hosting open house events to promote their unique school programs. These events are tremendously helpful in mitigating each school's declining enrollment and promoting their quality program offerings with prospective families. As their dates are finalized, I will add them to your weekly updated calendar. Whittier High School will be participating in their WUHSD accreditation process October 20 to 22nd. Beginning this year, though, the accreditation visit process has changed and no longer includes the networking activities that took place on Sundays. So darn, we are not going to be able to break bread with you all and their visiting committee on that Sunday. But other key changes are commencing in 2026 with revisions to the evaluation criteria. These changes will have direct implications for us in Whittier Union, as the WUHSD format and criteria standards are the foundation for each principal's annual report, as well as our district goals that are codified in Board Policy 0200. Therefore, in the months ahead, we'll be sharing more information about the specific changes and recommendations for policy revisions to ensure coherence and alignment. We are deep in the planning stages for our inaugural State of the District, which is on Wednesday, October 1 at 5:30. Doors will open at 5 with dinner served as people arrive. Student entertainment groups will include Whittier's Jazz Band and Cal's Choir. The program will commence promptly at 5:30 with a welcome and introductions. We anticipate representation from parents, students, and leaders from neighboring school districts and cities. We've also invited our nonprofit partners, including many, but specifically Help Youth Find Counseling, Learn, and the Whole Child, as well as representatives from Whittier, Norwalk, and Santa Fe Springs Chambers of Commerce. I'm pleased to share with you also that we have received a significant sponsorship from Supervisor Hahn. Yesterday, Mrs. Jones and I walked the Cal High venue with Ivan Sulik, the field deputy, and his assistant, and the team lead for their internal services division. It's like their big party planning, huge warehouse, who coincidentally has 3 children at Cal. The county will be providing all of the tables, linens, chairs, staging, audio, and much of the event signage for our event, as well as providing us with a generous donation. In addition, I would like to, let's see, finally, this is not finally, but I would like to request that similar to last year, we hold a special meeting immediately preceding our regularly scheduled October meeting at 5 p.m. so that we may review all of our 2024-25 measurable target data with you. This will provide ample time for us to thoroughly review the myriad of student achievement metrics to which we hold ourselves accountable and thoughtfully respond to your clarifying questions. Other events of note that I want to make you aware of, and I will put in the weekly update. The Celebration of Life for Martin Matthews will take place on September 27. The Santa Fe Springs State of the City is October 8. And Whittier's Band Jamboree, I want to make sure it's on your calendar, November 1. I also want to congratulate a couple of people, 4 people that we will have on, we're recommending for promotional reclassification. They are Luis Barrera, Sergio Garcia, Miguel Manriquez, and Jessica Martinez. All of them are being promoted, their reclassification, classified staff, all of them are in the transportation department and are taking on positions of delegate, trainer, as well as cover driver. And that does, I do feel the need to correct the record regarding a statement that was made with respect to the transportation and contracting out. And I do want to remember, for those of you who were on the board back in 2018, when at that time, when we got off the ground with transportation, more than a third of our routes were actually contracted out because we didn't have enough, we couldn't onboard enough drivers. That is, I'm happy to say, not the situation now. We have enough drivers, except for we had to add an additional route. So what we shared in the letter notifying CSEA is that it is our intent to hire another district driver. We have regular, we're onboarding continuously drivers with our originals class, and so it is our intent that this route be temporary until we can onboard a qualified driver. And that does conclude my report.
Thank you, Dr. Oviedo. And just a point of friendly clarification, the Whittier Union's Band Jamboree, you mentioned verbally November 1st, but the report reads November 3rd.
November 3rd, apologies.
No problem, just want to make sure everyone has it correct. Thank you.
It's a Monday night.
Monday night.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, thank you very much for that report. And that allows us to reach 14.01, our consent calendar. Colleagues, is there a motion to approve the consent calendar tonight?
I'd like to pull 2 items.
Okay, so noted.
I want to pull one item, and if it's different from her,
Okay.
two items.
So noted. Mr. Rodriguez, which items we should,
I'd like to pull 1403 and 1414.
14.03 and 14.14. Mr. Lopez?
1406.
Sorry, didn't mean to speak over you. 1406?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So, any other items by anyone else? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the consent calendar minus items 14.03,
So moved.
14.06, and 14.14? It's been moved by Mr. Mendez and seconded by Ms. Conchola. Okay. All in favor of approving the consent calendar as amended, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, so the majority of the consent calendar just passed, and now we will take up item 14.03. I'll take them up in numerical order, if that's okay with the board. We will now go to 1403, and Ms. Rodriguez-Moisa.
Yeah, I had this item pulled because there's one contract I really want to highlight that I was really pleased to see on our contract. So obviously, I'm urging that we approve it. And it is with the contract with the Teatro Campesino y Luis Valdez Play Collection contract to help at Cal High for their showing and the play Zoot Suit. So I think that this is incredible. Having been to the plays, actually, I think they have them in the, it's not Gilroy, but it's right around Gilroy. It's an incredible play and theater. So I basically just wanted to highlight that we are approving that and wholehearted 110% support. So move to approve.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Mendez.
I thought everyone was gonna say, haven't been a zoot suiter. No, no zoot suiter.
Not tonight.
Not tonight.
Mr. Lopez.
Just want to echo her comments. I remember Teatro Campesino doing great work, obviously, in the valley. And
but, you know, to bring bring that theater campesino to Kahai, it's awesome. Whoever did the work, I want to commend them for doing that. Thank you for that. And they continue to be very powerful and voicing certain things that are happening in the, you know, Central Valley, but just to have them here, and it's awesome. So definitely want to support as well.
So I think I moved to approve 14.
Second.
Okay.
Yes, you moved, Ms. Rodriguez-Meza moved, and seconded by Mr. Lopez. Any other discussion? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor of passing 14.03, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. That moves us to item 14.06, Mr. Lopez.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I pulled this item because I do want a reason why we're rejecting all bids, and maybe some, we're gonna reject, well, okay, I just have a report and then we'll go from there. Okay. From staff if you want.
So do we
Okay,
move it first and second it for discussion?
sure. Well, yeah, well, it's up to the
Would you
chair.
like to make the motion?
Sure, just for discussion purposes, we'll move to 14.06, consider approval to reject all bids.
Items moved by Mr. Lopez and seconded by Ms. Rodriguez-Meza. Okay, now, any further discussion?
Sure, absolutely. And I want to
Yes.
thank you so much for letting us know so that we can make sure to have a substantive report for you. I really
Yeah,
appreciate
thank
that.
you.
Mr. Demero is going to share, and if Mr. Demero has any pauses, then Mr. Rodriguez is here as well.
Thank you, Dr. Oviedo. First and foremost, our bid process and our procurement process, having a integrity build process is our priority. And ensuring that all potential bidders have a fair opportunity to bid for jobs in a fair and competitive way. This recommendation to reject all bids is related to just that. Give you some more background. Earlier this summer, on July 8th, the district issued an advertised request for proposals for the exterior painting of Lucerne High School. As our third of all of our schools that will be painted, this will be the third. Prior to the scheduled bid opening in mid-August, August 12th, it was determined that we had created an addendum. Now, where does the addendum come from? During our bid process, we advertise, we invite bidders to come and walk the job, and then after that, we have a request for information period, where if any potential bidder saw something on the walk or needed clarification, they can ask us questions. In our response to those questions, we issue an addendum to all of those that came and walked the site with answers to everybody's questions so that everybody has the same information. Shortly after that, we recognized that one of our responses in that addendum was conflicting with the original RFP language regarding specifically window frames. That in our original RFP, window frames were to be included in their base bid submission. In our response in the addendum, we suggested that the bidding of window frames be done supplementally. Now, it's a little thing, but the potential that creates is that different bidders would submit that in two different formats. Our rubric scoring says that we will only score based on the base bidding. So recognizing the potential for a lack of clarity, lack of fairness in that process, we immediately understood that we needed to start all over. We needed to re-advertise that job to ensure the integrity of the process was maintained. Therefore, we're requesting rejection of that process. We've already begun the process of re-advertising. We had, I believe, I'm looking at Ms. Rodriguez, that the job walk was today. We did communicate with all bidders. We did not open any of the bids. All sealed bids were returned to the original contractors with an explanation of how we recognize that we created confusion in our addendum and want to make it right to ensure that the process is as fair as possible.
Yes, Mr. Mr. Mendez.
What's the source of the funding?
This is a Measure AA
Okay,
project.
fine. A second question.
Mr.
Yeah, no,
Okay, Mr. Mendez, same question.
So can you tell me about the brick seal? What does that protect?
It's part of the painting, so when you paint and you seal, what we have not done here, if you notice in the campuses that have not, or that have already been painted, which includes this campus, as well as Santa Fe High School, we've decided to not paint the bricks, because you can't unpaint bricks. So in lieu of painting the bricks, we are sealing the bricks.
Is that protected from elements and graffiti?
More so from the fading and from staining. We do see water stains occur. If you ever have the sprinkler splash up on your wall over time, it discolors that. So it really kind of helps protect the integrity of the wall, prevents kind of the absorption of water, but also the stain.
Mr. Lopez, you had a question?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. And thank you, that was a very thorough report. I appreciate it. And I always wondered, why we were rejecting bids and be able to let the public know why we're doing it. But I do have a question. Now we're opening it up. One, we're rejecting it. Two, we're going to open it up. But what if another, like a worst case scenario, right? Another 30 applicants come in and say, hey, now the previous, the original 30 saying now I have to compete with another 60 overall. Is there legal implications if there is, that challenge?
I think trying to protect ourselves legally, that was part of the process of not opening the bids.
Awesome.
And working with our facilities consultants to what is the best course of action when we found our error. How do we rectify it? This was the recommendation from our facilities consultants, which will kind of help restart that whole process. And that's why we also communicated directly with each of those that did submit bids. It is more likely or a potential that because we had a lack of clarity between our two documents, that we also may have deterred people from bidding originally who were confused about what the proper way was to submit their bids. So again, we didn't want to deter people from bidding. We also wanted fair competition upon opening. That's kind of why we didn't open. So we didn't want any perception that you didn't like who bid lowest, or you are using that information to try to reset the pricing based on what people submitted, and maybe look at, if some might suggest, well, now you're sharing that with other people, or now that's not public, now other people can come in under bidding. So none of that information was shared publicly. Our regular bid opening process is public. All people can come, all vendors can come and watch us open, and all of the bid amounts are reported publicly.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, I call the question. All in favor of approving 14.06? We did get a motion and a second.
Yes.
It was
I moved it.
Mr.
She
Lopez.
seconded.
And seconded by Ms. Rodriguez. Thank you, Ms. City.
Just real quick, I want to commend Mr. Rodriguez as well for his work on this.
Commendation noted. Thank you very much.
Rodriguez's are in the house.
Call the question. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, 14.06 passes. We approve the rejection of all bids. That brings us to 14.14. Ms. Rodriguez-Buesa.
I'll go ahead and move it for
Second.
approval for discussion.
Very good. Second moved by Ms. Rodriguez-Buesa and seconded by Mr. Lopez. Please proceed.
Yeah, I pulled this out just really as a point of information to really understand what this process is. And I note that it has the name of the people who we are appointing as our representatives, but it doesn't tell me if they are a parent of a student with a disability, if they're general and special education teachers, are they a specialist, or are the other school personnel or representatives of community agencies. And so, and just to get an understanding of how they were selected and who they are, since they're going to be our district's representatives to WUHSD.
So they were appointed?
I do
Oh,
want to
sorry.
affirm you, first of all, for giving us a heads up that these were some of your questions, so that we can make adjustments for the future. And Ms. Bozigian is going to share with you a little bit about it.
Okay, thank you very much. They were appointed, and Ms. Gloria Reese is a voting member, and she is a parent, and she's been a parent for over 16 years here with the Whittier Union High School District. And she has served as the CAC president, or the, I'm using an acronym, sorry. A Community Advisory Committee president for multiple years. So she is a voting member. Our district representative is Ms. Adelina Gomez, and she is a program specialist. But she is also a mother of a 9th grader at California High School. So she is our district rep. And Blythe Saylor Lowe is our alternate member, and she too is a mother of a 9th grader at California High School and a program specialist.
And how do they get selected? How do they apply? Is there,
Well,
can
because
we
they
give
are
you
all,
guys names of people or?
no, they are part of the SELPA and they work closely with the SELPA, so that's how they are selected.
Okay, thank you. Nothing further.
Okay, if there is no further discussion, I call the question. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstained? The ayes have it, thank you very much. With the consent calendar now approved, we move to proposals and discussions, and we have a discussion under 15.01 on the mitigation of declining enrollment and intra-district transfers. Dr. Oviedo.
Yes, and to share more information, this is going to be, there will be 2 parts to this declining enrollment presentation. The first is going to share with you what we know from Davis Demographics. We hired them as a consultant to give us a sense of what is coming down the pipe with regard to enrollment trends, birth rates, et cetera, in the K-8 space all the way through us. And then we'll pivot to Mrs. Bozigi and some of her team sharing some of the reasons why students choose to leave Whittier Union. I know that's shocking, but they leave Whittier Union, but some of the programming that they choose and where they go, and the programming that they choose. And then part 2, at the end of the year, will be to share with you, we're going to do some learning and some next steps, and then we'll share with you some of our ideas for continuing to mitigate enrollment loss with programs.
Great, and before Mr. Jamero begins, just want to get the consensus of the board. Do we wish to hold our questions? I believe there are 35 slides, so I just want to make sure that Mr. Jamero and any other presenters have a chance to complete before we have questions. Is that fair, colleagues?
I would agree, let them finish the whole presentation.
I agree, Mr. Chair.
Or you can even stop halfway through. Let them finish?
Yeah.
Okay, just want to make sure to hold the board. Mr. Jamero, please proceed.
Thank you. Good evening again. I'm going to start, and I'm going to talk more about what is and what the projections say. I'm going to talk about the data, and again, don't shoot the messenger here. But we're going to look at enrollment kind of historically. We're going to look at current enrollment. We're going to look at future enrollment by school. Then we're going to jump into MGT's assessment, formerly Davis Demographics, and their assessment that, if you remember, we employed them, or we contracted with them about 1.5 years ago, and went through the process of securing data from all of our partner elementary school districts, which is a task to secure all of that data that we don't maintain, get that over to MGT and have them do their assessment and analysis, get it back, and then get a chance to look at it and understand what they did and how and what they're projecting. So hoping to bring that here to start the presentation, and then work with our Ed Services friends to talk about a different aspect of our enrollment, our inter-district mobility, and talk about how's that playing out in Whittier Union and what our potentials will be to mitigate those changes. So first we'll start with California enrollment, but I think we've seen this slide before. The state of California is seeing significant declining enrollment and projects significant declining enrollment on this chart through 2034, but I would also suggest that beyond 2034, it is projected to continue on that trend. We don't see the bottom of the trough yet over the enrollment trend in California, nor in LA County. LA County is recognized the second most significant decline projected between 2022 and 2032. We can see LA County only second to Santa Cruz County at more than 20%, 21%, 21.21% for LA. We're going to take a look at enrollment trends by school. So we'll disaggregate it by campus, and we'll start with Whittier High School. Whittier High School's enrollment decline over the last 10 years, 23.66%. There's a lot of slides in this presentation, but we'll go quickly and try to look at each school individually and then the district as a whole. In the same time period, the same 10 years, Santa Fe High School, 25.31% in the last 10 years. Pioneer High School, 29.28%. California High School, 23.49%. Lucerno High School, which we often think of as our biggest school, right? Surely they're not experiencing declining enrollment, 23.66% in the same time period. Different thought here, alternative ed sites. Frontier High School and our continuation program. A couple of different factors. Yes, declining enrollment district-wide impacts Frontier's enrollment, although Frontier doesn't have a specific attendance area, although it's the entire district. Declining enrollment across all district boundaries results in declining enrollment at Frontier, but also when we see positive data related to on-target rates across all of our schools, that also impacts the number of recommendations or referrals to Frontier High School. And then with Dr. Moriarty's efforts and her team to get students back to their home campus as soon as possible after recovering credit, we see that Frontier is on that decline as well at 29.28%. Sierra Vista High School, a little bit of a different story. Sierra Vista is our independent study program. So we experienced a bubble following the COVID campus closures. And students who were a little not ready to return to in-person instruction transitioned to iSierra, our independent study online program. So we see, following the 2021 year, a steep increase in the number of students enrolling in iSierra, and that kind of held steady for a few years. But last year we did see a decline as students are moving back towards in-person instruction as we get further and further away from COVID shutdowns. Non-public enrollment, a population we don't always talk about in terms of enrollment. We have students that have significant needs, whether that's behavioral or instructional needs, that are better served at campuses not within the Whittier Union High School District. They are our students. They count in our enrollment. They count towards our ADA, and then we fund their attendance at other schools. We call that non-public school attendance. Our non-public enrollment is also declining when you consider it in fewer students district-wide. In addition to this, we have had efforts to create programs that can support more students. For example, the Santa Fe Pride program, the ED program at Pioneer High School, in an attempt to retain more of our students and not transition them to non-public schools. So we see that declining as well, 22.58% over the same period. When you wrap them all up, you end up with this colorful graph here, and you can see kind of relative enrollments from one color to the next. But they really combine to give us the overall district enrollment, 24.16% overall for the last 10 years, which really is in trend with LA County as well as California. MGT, this is a new acronym. MGT was formerly Davis Demographics. Davis Demographics was bought out by MGT, but they continued this work during the last year and a half. They took a look at our data, and again, I mentioned at the beginning, the challenge of coordinating data collection for a 4-year cycle at each grade level at 5 partner elementary school districts and Whittier Union. It's a little bit of a challenge to try to coordinate that. We don't maintain their data, so getting them to participate, I'm very thankful to our partner elementaries who did do that. But you can imagine, it may not always be their priority when the high school district asks, can you do that as soon as possible? But over time, we're able to get that data over to MGT, who looked at their data through kind of 4 lenses. Birth rates, student mobility factors, and we'll talk about what these mean in a little bit, student yield factors, and planned residential development. They use these 4 lenses to kind of come up with an overall projection of where our enrollment's going moving forward. Birth rates. Birth rates in California are collected, our birth rates for our school district collected from the California Department of Health. Looking at birth rates, we see our experienced a 23.7% decrease in birth rates between the years 2015 and 2023. So just in a 8-year span, we saw a 23.7% decrease in birth. So right off the bat, we're starting with fewer students, right? And why would we pick 2015, right? First of all, you only have birth rates up until last year or the year when you began the study, but we're also looking at data when students start reaching school, right? And that's what MG2 is looking at. We'll show that in just a couple of slides. MGT's review of birth rates led to this chart. This is kind of their conclusions. And I'll point out just a few things on this chart. 2018, the base year. They established that as a base year because in 2023 is when they first had available data to start their study, and that's when students start school at age 5. So looking at that, and we see in the column labeled percent change that compared to the base year, in 2015, there were 112.9% of births. So what does that mean? Ultimately, as I look from that 112.9 and I look down the list, we see birth rates continue to decline through 2023, which was the last time that birth rates were available, but projected to decline well into the future, into 2029, with the kinder year of 2034. The second lens is student mobility factor. I like to think of this as how students transition from one grade level to the next. What percentage of all of the first graders become second graders at our partner elementary districts, and so on, from second to third, third to fourth. MGT calls that their student mobility rate, and they look at factors that contribute to that, and they come up with and yielded this chart. All of the blues, I would say, are good. Right? This is where we ended up with more students, let's say in second grade from the prior year, right? From grade level to grade level for all of our partner elementaries through high school. The blue means we increased. There's an anticipated yield of more students than the prior year at a particular grade level transition. The whites indicate that the numbers stayed solid, and the yellows indicate that fewer students matriculated from one grade level to the next. And you can see at each of our partner elementary districts and in what grade levels those trends occur, where we see fewer students or more students than the prior year. Looking at this, when we look at our section in the 9 to 12 section, we have some blue, but we also have some yellow, depending on particular geographical area where our students are coming from. Again, that's the second factor that MGT looked at. The third, student yield factors. This one's a little harder to explain. This is, what do we anticipate if I build an apartment complex? For each apartment, or each 100 apartments, how many high school students do we get out of that? So what's the yield on any new development? And they come up with these factors. So let me explain this. We have two different columns. APT and MFA, apartments and multifamily attached homes, right? So these are your multifamily dwellings, and then on the right, single family developments, so individual homes. At the bottom, 0.265 is total. So that means for every 100 apartments or multifamily dwellings, you get about 26.5 school-age kids. What does that mean for Whittier Union? About 4.2 kids. For every 100 apartments or multifamily attached homes, you get about 4.2 kids for the high school. On the right, single family dwelling, for every 100 single family homes, you get about 8 kids total, or 1.6 high school students. So that's what the idea of looking at a student yield factor is What does each type of new development yield in terms of school-age children? And then the last piece of that, related to that, is, well, how many new apartments or how many new homes are you planning to build, are you building currently in your community? And this is a piece where I think MGT's reach extends beyond data that we have available to us. Most of the factors that they use are something that is available. This is a piece that is relatively new to my thinking on how I project enrollment moving forward. Ultimately, it looks at what are all of the new developments within our attendance boundaries. And this chart yields where they are. A vast majority of all of these new developments are occurring in the Whittier High School attendance area. So a total of 133 units, and I will share in this study, no new single-family homes. All either apartments or multifamily attached homes, so condos, duplexes, those sorts of things. So you can see at the top left, 66 apartments and 67 what are categorized as MFAs, right? Multifamily attached homes or apartments, with 0 single-family development planned. So when we look at the factor, the student yield factor, multiplied by the number of new developments, combined with birth rates and the matriculation rate from grade to grade, you end up with their projections. And it is in line with what we have seen for us, and projects out that through the 2030 school year, kind of the data in which was available to MGT as well as us when we see our data of students enrolled in schools, we do anticipate continued decline at the high schools at each individual school. Some of their analysis, their executive summary, kind of laughed when I read it, when I first received it. I'll read you one, I usually don't like to read you slides, but the decline can be attributed to higher high school class sizes that are due to be replaced by smaller class sizes at the elementary and middle school level. So we're graduating larger classes than our incoming 9th grade classes. And that based on birth rates, based on the matriculation rates, and based on development that we see in our attendance area, we're only anticipating that the new development will generate 57 TK through 12 students. So for us, that's about 6 kids that we'll anticipate seeing coming each year due to new development, which will not offset what we see in declining birth rates and matriculation rates. Having shared all that, I'm going to turn it over to our Director of Assessment Accountability and our Director of Student Support Services, Tim Liggett, and Jennifer Medina.
Good evening.
Good evening. So I think Mr. Chimero has done a really great job of highlighting that the most important factor in declining enrollment, the most significant factor, is simply that there are fewer kids. But another issue that we need to consider when we study our declining enrollment is we need to study the students who are choosing to leave Whittier Union and attend other schools. And so we decided to look at the current freshman class, which is the class of 2029, kind of as a focus group to get a sense of what that might look like. So what I did is I defined the idea of expected enrollment, so the expected number of 9th graders that we want to start the year with. And the way we're going to define that is those are students who live in our attendance area and had a Whittier Union ID generated back when they were in 8th grade. Now the most common way for that to happen is they attend one of our partner middle schools and then their data rolls over to us. So the easiest way to think about expected enrollment, they live in our attendance area and they attended one of our partner middle schools. So that number for the class of 2029 was 2,350. Of those 2,350 students that you'd expect to get, we had 198 not enroll in Whittier Union. So the good news is we're getting the great majority of them, but that is 8% that we didn't get. Now, the other piece, of course, is we do get students from the outside. We get unexpected enrollments, if you will, students who move into our attendance area or maybe went to private school, didn't attend one of our feeder middle schools, and that was 150 outside enrollments so far. And so what that leads us is to a total ninth grade enrollment for the class of 2029 of 2,302. That is a net loss of 48 students. So I think the interesting question to try to consider is, when we look at those 198 students that we didn't get, where did they go? So I've got a graph for you that lays out kind of the different types of destinations for our 198 students that we didn't get. I'm going to start with the unknown category because that sounds kind of ominous, that there are students that we don't know. But this is actually fairly common. We have families who will move out of the area and they don't tell us, they don't unenroll. And that kind of makes sense. They're ninth graders, they've never attended our school before, and so sometimes they don't tell us. Our school staff makes a really good faith effort to communicate with those families. Those efforts are continuing because we do want to be able to close the books on where they ended up. But for 10 of those 198, we have not yet been able to identify where they're attending school. But for the rest, we can give you more solid information. 2 are being homeschooled. 6 are attending online charter schools. 12 are attending in-person charter schools. 14, and this is, I think, part of the lesson of the 198, people move. 14 have moved out of state for a variety of reasons. 38 of the 188 have chosen private schools for high school. The most common, almost half of the 38, is St. Paul High School, which obviously is very local here. The next biggest private school would have been St. John Bosco. I think it was 6 kids at St. John's Bosco, and then smatterings of 1s and 2s at various other private schools in the area. 42 students have gone out of area. And by out of area, what we mean is they're attending a public school in California, but it's not local to Whittier. So Rialto, Hemet, the Bay Area, Orange County. So those are students, again, people move. It's safe to assume of the 42, they're probably not commuting from Whittier to deep into the Inland Empire. They have probably moved as well. So that leaves us with 74. 74 students who are attending what I would call local school districts where it would be very possible to live in our attendance area and then commute to school in that school district. Now I should point out, that doesn't mean that's actually happened with all 74 of those students. If a student wishes to live in our attendance area and attend another district, they have to get an interdistrict permit, which is something that my colleague Ms. Medina is going to talk more about in a few minutes. About 40 of those 74 did get interdistrict permits to go attend other schools while they still reside in our attendance area. But the other students, the other 34, again, people move, they moved out of our attendance area. But I do think it's interesting to look at where those 74 are going, to really kind of zoom out, microscope in one more level here. And these are all obviously local districts very close to Whittier, most of them very Whittier adjacent. So we get 1 of the 74 went to Almonte Union, 1 to Montebello, 2 to El Rancho, 5 to Downey, 14 of the 74 are in Norwalk, La Mirada, and then we get to the 2 bigger answers, the 2 bigger destinations, 24 students in Hacienda La Puente, and 27 students in Fullerton Joint. Now, that then brings the question to mind, if they are asking for a permit to go to another district, why are they making those requests? So we went through and analyzed the permit requests that we got this year, and I want to clarify on this slide. When you see these percentages, these are not the percentages of the 74 kids, because we know some of them moved. These are not the percentages even of the 198. This is the percentage of the total roughly 240 permit requests we got, all grade levels, during the spring last year for this upcoming school year. And these are the most common reasons cited on their permit requests. The largest one, almost half of the permit requests, come down to being accepted into a special program offered by a school in another district that is a program that we don't offer here, or we don't have an equivalent of here. 29% of the requests came to what's called district continuity. So an example of that might be if a student in our attendance area went to middle school not at one of our partner schools, but maybe in a unified school district on a permit. They've already gone to middle school on a permit. They'd like to continue to go to high school in that same district, and so that's what a district continuity request is. In some cases, they already have siblings that are attending in other districts. That's a very common request. And then the other 16% is kind of a hodgepodge of reasons. Parent employment in other school districts is a common one, childcare reasons, and even geography. When you consider the very north part of our attendance area, kind of in the Avocado Heights area, some of the high schools in Hacienda La Puente are actually physically closer, geographically closer than Whittier Union schools, even though that's our attendance area. So that sometimes is a reason that gets cited for a permit request. Again, the one that I think is going to draw our attention is the roughly half that are looking at special programs that we don't offer. So let's talk about what those are, what they're looking for. So when we break down those students who have requested a permit for special programs, here's kind of what we see. We see that the largest chunk, 39%, are looking for a CTE pathway that we don't have in our district. Now, we have a lot of CTE pathways in our districts, but there are some that we don't offer. And these are some examples: fire or public safety, aviation, welding, agriculture, computer coding, which is not to say that we don't have classes that cover these topics, but other schools have, a CTE pathway is typically at least 2 years, so either a 2 to 3 to 4 year pathway in that program that we don't offer. The next largest chunk is the International Baccalaureate Program. And I know in our district, we're used to the idea of advanced placement classes, AP classes. AP and IB are very similar concepts. They're higher level students that are higher level classes that are designed to prepare students for college. And if students do well, they can earn college credit. The big difference is that in AP classes, and in Whittier Union we offer something like 25 to 30 different AP classes amongst all of our sites. Students can kind of pick and choose the AP classes that they want to take based on interest or aptitude. They might take AP English, they might not take AP History. The IB program is a little bit more prescriptive in that it requires students to take these higher level classes across 6 different subject areas so they can ultimately complete something called an IB diploma. It's a different take on advanced placement, but it's not something we currently offer in our district, and so that's 35% of our program requests. 11% are requesting some type of military program, the most common being junior ROTC. But there's also a school in Norwalk, La Mirada, Southeast Academy, which is attached to John Glenn High School, which is it's basically a public military style high school, and so that is a common request. We see requests for 4-year language programs that we don't, again, have in our district. The 2 most common, American Sign Language and Japanese. Again, our students have opportunities to take these classes, especially through our partnership with Rio Hondo, but these aren't things where we have 4-year programs on our campuses. And then the other one that comes up, not so much to single out a specific school, but just because it was the same percentage as language programs. La Habra High School has something called the Heritage Humanities Program, which it's a 4-year program, and it's humanities, so that means it's kind of a linked social studies and English curriculum over 4 years. They have a college prep version of it, they have an advanced placement version of it, and I'll tell you the way they sell it on their website is that's where most of their valedictorians come from, that's where most of their National Merit Scholars come from. Not necessarily the curriculum part, that's how they sell it, and that's something that is attractive. So with that kind of background in mind, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Ms. Medina, who's going to talk to you about the permit process and what our obligations are when we address interdistrict permits.
Thank you, Mr. Liggett. So before diving into the specifics of our process, I want to establish a framework that governs the interdistrict transfer, both in Ed Code and in our board policy. Unlike an intra-district transfer, which is a transfer from one of our high schools to another one of our high schools, an inter-district transfer allows a student who lives in one school district to attend a school in a different district. There are a few areas that must be met for an inter-district transfer to occur. So this is a 2-step process, okay, where both the home district and the receiving district must approve the transfer. Once approved, students typically do not need to reapply each year. And then finally, permits cannot be canceled for students in grades 11 and 12. This ensures that students can finish their high school career without disruption. Okay. And so as Mr. Liggett talked about in his section in the data, there are specific reasons students may be approved for an inter-district transfer. As you can see, the parameters that allow for an interdistrict transfer listed below, and in each case, we do require verification. Okay, so childcare needs, a family has a childcare provider, and they must live within that district's boundaries. Sibling attendance, recognizing that some of our students have older siblings at another district, families want to keep their kids together, and so they often request an interdistrict transfer to keep their kids together. Additionally, we talked about the geographic proximity. Sometimes our schools are, sometimes our students' homes are just closer to a school that is not a part of our district. Parent employment, we honor a parent who works full-time at a school district. And the biggest area, okay, the area cited most by families requesting a transfer is the academic program area. So when a student has documentation showing acceptance into an academic program that their home district does not offer or does not provide, such as the welding or agricultural programs that were mentioned earlier, those are all reasons for approval. And so coming to our process, okay, our parents come in, they begin at their home school site with their guidance office. And so at step 2, our assistant principal of guidance reviews all the documents and may also ask questions of the family, meet with the family, have conversations, really work to try and understand what's going on with them and why they would ask for an interdistrict transfer. Once they have done their due diligence, they send the application and recommendation to our Student Support Services office. Whereas step 3, as director, Student Support Services, I reviewed the application, the student's recommendation, and I also work with our APG. This is a step where the process may go back and forth a little bit. If there's questions, if there's other concerns, reaching out, sometimes we reach back out to the family, and so this is a process that'll go back and forth, or may go back and forth a little bit, depending on the situation. And then finally, step 4, based on the review, we then move forward on one of 2 paths. We either approve that interdistrict transfer, and we send that documentation to the receiving district who then works through their process. And if we deny, we then send a letter out to the family with the denial and listing the appeal process that a family can follow. Okay, so that's our process. But one of the things we've been working on, and we've been doing this in many stages over the last few years, is working to mitigate declining enrollment. So some of the things that we are doing is actively promoting our programs through our website, through social media, as our district social media also picks up some of this, and direct outreach. Our school personnel are visiting partner schools in person, bringing middle school students to our campuses, attending high school nights at our local private schools, and organizing our fall open houses. We're also working on continuing to develop our dual enrollment opportunities and our early college academy to provide more value for our students and families. We've also worked at reducing our students attending a non-public school. Rather than placing them in that private setting, we are working in-house to bring these students in, and that is a benefit both to our campuses, increasing that enrollment, and also continuing to develop our programs that we have on campus. And then working with our staff in improving the application process and ensuring that we continue to communicate with families. We have personal conversations, asking about their goals and sharing the amazing opportunities that Whittier Union offers. Additionally, for families who may still be unsure about whether we are the right fit for them, we offer high school student shadowing where they can come in and stay on campus for a day and feel what it's like to, be a cardinal, be a condor. And we have also started to provide the data for families. looking at our on target, our A through G, and our grad rate. Okay, and we all know our data is amazing, and it definitely outshines our local districts. So having those really important conversations with families and showing them that we can provide an amazing experience for their students at our district has been a really important point for us. So, and yes, this process will help to decrease our inter-district transfers because we believe in the quality of education that we provide here at Whittier Union. And so these are just some of the strategic areas as we continue to explore other ways to mitigate the declining enrollment and the request to leave our district. And with that, I believe that leads us to questions.
Thank you. Can we go back to that last slide?
Yes.
That's really our money slide right there. And I will pause because I have like 5 questions, but I'm going to stop myself and turn to my colleagues to see if maybe what we can do is go one trustee at a time. I imagine you might have several questions, and I'll be happy to go back. Who would like to go first? Yes, Ms. Controller.
Okay, so I know that when you mentioned about the non-public enrollment, so they go out, they're being taught somewhere else, right? We're paying for them. But how does that impact our data? In terms of the student success, and I'm just curious about that.
Actually, we don't, the students who are at the non-public, we usually don't collect that data. But when they do come to our schools and then they are part of our comprehensive, either through like our PRIDE program or Pioneer ZD program, that's where we will see that data as a part of our overall. Yes.
So just a quick piece on that. When the students ultimately graduate from their non-public school, they actually return to our graduation cohort. And so if their home school was California High School, as an example, they then become a graduate for California High School, even though they did all of their schooling at a non-public school. And so we do get credit for them as a graduate, and it does positively impact our graduation rate.
Okay. And so I have 2 more questions.
Sure.
So I know that you had, you put that really great list in terms of why students are moving to other preferred programs. So I'm going to pose a question that I would like for you to ponder on and then come back to us. Yeah, yeah, that one. If we could develop a couple of those programs, which ones would you recommend? Because there's 39% and 35% are pretty significant numbers, right? So, I'm giving you some homework. I want you to consider that, and what would that look like, and how much would it cost us to?
Yeah, I appreciate that question, and we are looking at current feasibility of some of the more popular CTE programs, especially. We have a number of CTE pathways. We have a number of academies that are offered on each of our campuses. Its issues. And we actually receive students on inter-district commit to us towards those particular pathways or those academies that we do offer. We also see the migration the other way for pathways we don't offer. So part of that feasibility is looking at, is it cost effective? Do we have enough students interested in that pathway to support full sections or full pathway programs to where we would be able to retain more of our students while at the same time having it be financially feasible to do.
And then my final question.
If I may, before we go, for the IB program, Mr. Liggett is doing a deep dive in the IB program. What are the different courses? What schools is it feasible at? So we will come back to you with all of that and the pros and cons of the IB.
Thank you. And my final one is, what percentage of requests to transfer do we get? Do you have an idea, when they're denied? I know that they could be, they could follow up with you and appeal, but I'm just curious, what that percentage looks like.
Of how many appeal?
No,
Or
how many are denied?
Percentage?
Yeah.
That would be a good question. I would say, with the exception of a couple areas, the majority of them are denied on the first round until either they provide more information more validation for meeting those structured needs based on ed code and board policy. And so sometimes through the appeal process, they may be accepted, but the majority of those are denied in the immediacy.
Thank you, Commissioner. Colleagues, any other questions? Mr. Lopez?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And excellent presentation. Love the data. I love, where we're at, where we're gonna go, and especially with special programs. I have a personal story here. So I play basketball at LA Fitness. You get to see parents, fathers playing hoop and everything. And, I strike up a conversation with the father one time, and I asked him, hey, where's this kid going? Oh, he's going to Sonora. And I go, where do you guys live? Oh, we live in Whittier. And I go, why is he going to Sonora? Because they have an IB program. I go, wait a minute. What's an IB? I didn't know what an IB program was at that time. He goes, no, you know what? It's a college preparation program. It's a different kind of level. And I did share that information with Dr. Oviedo. Oh, hey, we're losing kids because obviously they have an IB program, we don't. So I'm glad here that we're looking into that. And I do have some other questions on the sports. This was not mentioned of that, right? A lot of times, kids, we're losing kids to La Mirada, right? And La Mirada High School, because the baseball field was not, didn't have a home run fence, So a lot of times they want to come here because of sports. We have successful programs here. And where's the messaging on that?
It's going to add to the complexities of this whole challenge, right? These reasons, just to say this, are self-reported reasons. These are the reasons that are placed on applications. We also know that there are athletically motivated transitions between schools, where individuals know that they will be denied a permit if they say, I want to go to this school because they have a better basketball program or a better basketball facility or a better football program. Those are automatically denied and are not allowable under permit because all programs, all schools have those same athletic programs.
Right.
However, we know, and I will share a personal story, my 8th grade son, who just transitioned to 9th grade, and we live in Brea, our home school's Brea, just happened to play on a very successful 8th grade Pop Warner football program, coached by an assistant coach at La Habra High School. La Habra High School assistant varsity coach invited quite a few number of players off of the Pop Warner team to shadow students at La Habra High School and potentially to transfer to La Habra High School from wherever they lived, with information about which programs are offered at their schools that are not offered at your home district. So even when it shows up IB, Heritage for the Americas, a particular CTE pathway, it doesn't necessarily mean that's the primary reason that's why they want to go there. It is the reason they believe they will be approved to transfer. So it does complicate, again, and the data that we're presenting is what we see on the applications, but we also know it's not a singular factor that results in students choosing or parents choosing to pursue an interdistrict permit. Oftentimes, there are more than one reason, some allowable for transfer, some not.
And I do have a question.
Okay, yes, please, Mr. Lopez.
Thank you, I appreciate it, Trustee Rodriguez. MGT, do we pay for this service?
We did.
We did? Is it one time or?
One time.
Is it one time?
One time. We had a one-time contract for that particular agreement.
Do we revisit every 10 years? What do we do?
I haven't gone through the process. I would recommend, this is just me, that the data that MGT uses is easier for me to pull from the California Department of Ed Data Quest website And again, from my perspective, I can generate the same level of projections with the exception of the residential development, which we saw yield very few kids. So it's great to have a second set of eyes or different perspective on the enrollment projections. But ultimately, when I look at what our district projections are done, and it's done both in business services for financial planning, and it's also done in personnel services for staffing projections, that when we look at the numbers that we've had historically up against MGT's projections, we're very close. So knowing that, and knowing that you're already paying for us, I would say we will absolutely do that. If there's changes in the residential developed market that might change some impact there, I would suggest maybe then. But I think we're good for a little while, and we do these calculations internally annually.
Couple more. Did you look at it? Thank you. I noticed that this presentation does not include the home sales. I'm sure it's a huge factor, right? The housing market, you know, just overall housing market. Apartments, it's kind of different data, right? But on the housing market, can we request, maybe in the future, request that kind of data?
The way they look at it is not in terms of how many houses are selling, but they try to capture all of those factors in the matriculation rate from grade to grade. They know there are a combination of factors of why people move away or they move into the area, and all of those reasons get factored into that number, that percentage. What percentage is going to move from 3rd grade to 4th grade? And that, regardless of the reasons why they're moving in or out, that shows trend lines on are they moving in or are they moving out. So when there are new developments, though, if there was new home sales, what we're also recognizing is that the cost of homes in the area, we're not selling. A lot of folks, especially with interest rates and knowing that when you move into a new home, property taxes reset in those homes, we're not seeing a lot of movement. We're seeing a lot of people staying in their childhood homes, staying for a long time. And even when those homes become vacant, we don't see first-time home buyers often moving in to these single-family homes with child or school-aged children. And that's a piece of it is we have an aging local demographic who are getting a little older than what our demographic used to be with larger number of school-age students.
The median house price, by the way, in Whittier is $825,000. It's higher in certain zip codes, 90602 is higher in some of the others.
One last thing,
Yes.
Mr. Chair. Just a suggestion, and maybe my colleagues agree. There's a knuckle-looking area in South Whittier, just north of the Imperial Highway, and I think it's Mr. Mendez's area. It's La Mirada Norwalk Unified cover this area. And I'm wondering if we can have a conversation with that district to get this area. Seriously.
There is a process that we can, yes, through Los Angeles County reorganization. It's something similar to what we did when we went through the Board of Trustees establishing trustee areas. We had to go through that process. The process would involve 3 school districts. It would involve Little Lake City School District, Whittier Union, because that also would be Little Lake's elementary school area, as well as Norwalk La Mirada. And there has to be an agreement amongst the 3 for Norwalk La Mirada to release. You'd also need to look at, are there any schools in that particular area, and then make a determination on what's the value of assets that Norwalk La Mirada would have to give up. So there is a process for that. Other school districts like La Cañada and have gone through that process with the Glendale Unified School District. Santa Monica Malibu has also had a similar process.
So it's not far-fetched?
It's not far-fetched.
Okay.
But it is a very lengthy process that requires cooperation amongst 3 school districts.
How can we request that?
We'll have to do a little research, maybe we can bring that back as part of our research into the, for part 2 of the motion.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Rodriguez-Moisa, I believe you were next.
Yes, thank you. I have a question about Table 2, mobility factors, and Table 3, student yield factors. On Table 2, and they're both sort of the same question. For Table 2, the mobility factors, what phase in time was this table generated? Was it 2023, was it 2024?
This was based off of 4
4 years, so it was a whole conglomerate of,
4 years worth from 23, 24, 22, 23, 21, 22, and 2021, I believe were the data years. But each of those years, enrollment contained the enrollment for each grade level as well, for each partner district as well as Whittier Union. So the way I understand, and we do something similar, is we look at the percentage of enrolled to percentage of enrolled from year to year to calculate, is it 100% of the prior grade level? Is it less than 100%? Is it more than 100%?
and I'm sorry, so when I saw this, and the same thing with the student yield factor, I thought, oh, this is a singular point in time, they're giving me a data point. But that's not the case, and I apologize, I didn't hear the years you said that they basically reviewed to come up with this composite data.
Yeah, 23, 24, back 4 years. So really, it's looking at trends, matriculation trends, grade level to grade level over a period of 4 data cycles, or 4 years.
So 2019, 2020 probably started, okay. And was that the same on Table 3, the student yield factors? Because I also see on the previous slide, it talks about fall 24 and applied to fall 23, so I wasn't sure if that was a 1 year or if that was also a 4-year composite review.
That's a good question, the one I don't have an answer for, Trustee Rodriguez-Moisa. This one was, again, when we talked about the yield from residential development, this is something that was a little new to me on their methodology. I did share also, I believe, the full study report with members of the board last week as part of the board weekly update. I can get back into it and try to look at the methodology for this one, but I know the data we provided was the 4 years. How they look at residential development and its yield is not solely in the data that we provided.
Thank you. There was that interesting slide where you did the quote on what the reason is. There's this estimate of the new developments that are going to be developed or have been developed over this time period. You've got 57 new K through 12. It's a little disconcerting because there's all this development going on. There are rumors that the city of Whittier is looking to develop the Whitwood Mall into a bunch of apartments or condos. And it's unclear what they're going to put there. Obviously, there's already retail, if they're going to keep that or not. Have you heard anything about that, or what the potential size of that development might be, so that we might need to go out and do some lobbying? Although I didn't want it for traffic purposes, quite frankly, but.
I can speak to that.
Sure, please.
As a Woody president. So the intent is that when Sears goes out of business, and I think they may already go out of business, that the intent is to change that into some townhomes, et cetera. The number of units, I don't know, but that's definitely something we can bring back to the board when we update. I'm sure that the city manager can
So
share
share
that. It's
that.
part of their state of the city.
And only the Sears side or the whole mall?
Not the
Because
whole
you've
mall.
got JCPenney.
You've got JCPenney is still viable, I believe, Kohl's is still, but it's the Sears
24-hour
specifically.
fitness.
The Target and some of the other places are
Okay,
still
so that's not going to
operating.
be, all right, so that's not going to be that.
Also, I'll include NGT's full study, which I believe was attached to the board weekly update last week, has a section where certain planned residential development for the future was excluded from inclusion in projections because of the status of those particular projects were not yet at a point where they were for sure. So they were in development, and so there's a section where identified potential development But the disclaimer is those particular projects were excluded from future projections at that point.
Let me go, my next question is on the following slide, which is the class of 2029 enrollment data, where we talk about our expected ninth grade enrollment is 2350. And I want to clarify a couple things and maybe look at potential opportunities here as you all go back and do some more research. So the 2350 is the number that is based on the enrollment of the 8th graders from our partner elementary schools.
Who live in our area. That's
Who live in
the
our
other
area.
piece, who live in our area. Because
So
we
not
also
kids
roll
who-
over data
Yeah.
from our feeder schools for kids who don't live in our area. We roll it all over, but we're not counting them in our study as being expected.
All right, so this does not capture kids who are attending a K through 8 Catholic elementary schools.
Correct.
St. Bruno, St. Mary's,
Correct.
St. Gregory's, or Whittier, what's the one up here off of Colino?
St. Mark's.
St. Mark's, okay, so it doesn't capture those. But we think we capture some of those kids as part of this 150 outside enrollments.
Yes.
I want us to really dig deep on how much bigger that 150 can be.
Right.
Because I don't see this as a net loss of 48. I still see it as a net loss of 198. And that we have 150 plus more that are out there going to private schools who we don't have any contact with that we can go out and potentially try to get. So food for thought for you all. What do we need to do at St. Mary's, St. Gregory's, St. Bruno's, St. Mark's, to do whatever, and obviously we're doing our own stuff for our own districts, but for those districts, because here you've got 150, that seemed like great, like, can we double that? But anyway, just food for thought, you don't have to answer, but yeah, I just want to make sure that as you come back next time, give some thought to that and ideas for us for that. And then I think I had a question on the most common reasons. I want to talk a little bit about the CTE programs. I consider this low-hanging fruit for us as you look at programs that we might be able to offer. We have a robust ROP district, and honestly, those of us who are on the board now, we're kind of pushing that administration to look at developing CTE programs that can increase enrollment and increase interest and whatnot. So perhaps a discussion with them as well about, fire would be incredible. That's just what comes to mind. I'm like, oh wow, if kids want to be a firefighter, it's a great career. Aviation, my God, I never even thought about that, so I don't even know who offers that. But I think that that's sort of another sort of, I'll call it low-hanging fruit, where if we're losing the biggest percentage of students who claim they're going because of that program, maybe that's not so hard for us to pivot in the next couple of years versus creating an IB program is going to be a massive undertaking with a lot of energy, with a lot of new curriculum, with a lot of new teachers potentially trained in a different way. My nephew went to Troy High and he, I don't know why he did it. I thought he seemed miserable to me. It was just way too much. But parents want that for their kids. That will draw them. Anyway, those are my commentaries. Just food for thought as you guys come back in a few months.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez-Moisa. Mr. Mendez, do you have any questions?
If I could touch on that CTE issue. I brought up, when I was on the ROP board, brought up a fire academy at the high school. And talked to the fire academy chief at Rio Hondo, and they said that it's not too far of a stretch. Their academy's right here in Santa Fe Springs. But I don't think there was interest at the time, so I don't know if there's a cost-benefit analysis that would produce any more attendance than that. And, I had a couple of questions. Is people that use an address outside of the district, for instance, I had a family that I taught that had 5 children. They all went to Downing, and they all used grandma's address. And so they're not even on our radar then in that case, right?
Were they at a partner middle school of ours? Or
No, because they've been using that grandma's address for.
I think in those
That's a
scenarios,
continuity.
they're not on our radar. In scenarios where maybe there's an attempt to use a false address, while they're a student within our feeder district, we do have ability to follow up on that.
And I'm curious about the North Whittier area. It's the little Santa's Cap, right? They're so distant from Pioneer that I would think that may be an issue. So do we have sort of a little analysis of what that may look like, of people wanting to go more locally?
Yeah, so if we look at the schools that, from that particular area, in going to Hacienda Puente, so the geography there, I kind of used Andrews Middle School as a measuring point, because that's more or less in that Avocado Heights area. So Los Altos High School is 2 miles away from Andrews. Wilson High School in Hacienda Puente is 4 miles away from Andrews. Whittier High School is also 4 miles away from Andrews, and Pioneer High School is 6 miles away from Andrews. When we look at the students who are going to the Hacienda Puente schools, they are primarily students in the Pioneer High School attendance area, which means, yeah, we're talking about that northernmost part of our district's boundaries.
Okay, and, having kept my eye on Whittier demographics since the 80s, 90s, etc., there's always been a trend and forecast that Whittier population was going to decrease. And that's been known for the last 20 years. And unfortunately, housing policy did not really follow anything to encourage families moving in. In fact, the policy of Whittier City has been the building of senior centers as opposed to family dwellings. And so this is kind of a result of that. And, cities like Whittier are going to be a little reluctant to build, least of all, affordable housing and multifamily dwellings. And so I don't know how much of an impact we would make. We'd have to make some type of district statement, because the housing project that's most recent down at Carmenita on the Carmela playground, it was expensive. So they built an expensive housing structure in an affordable, low-income community where, it should have been on our radar, is that 50 units could have very well produced, 20 kids. And so I don't know how much we do to encourage that. We have to do that as a district to do that. And we're sort of on the ending curve of that, these are the consequences of 10 years of housing policy. There's nothing we can do for the next 2 years to encourage a big boom of a growth. So I think housing policy is a significant issue. And the reality of, and Mr. Jamero mentioned it, is the cost benefit is how much do we spend chasing these 200 students versus how much it would have brought in. So spending $2 to earn $1, I don't think it's as prudent. And the reality is population is declining. And there are factors that may occur now and in the next 2 years that may discourage that even more, including possible recession, our immigration issues and things like that. So I think there's a reality that we have to come to, and we dealt with this at Rio Hondo College 10 years ago as we expected a declining enrollment, and we had to adjust our expectations. We're going to have to be a smaller college. We're going to have to adjust according to our population, and there really isn't any sacred cows to be able to keep this business running at the capacity that they were before. And the reality is that we're going to have to trim down a little bit. So this is not a surprise. I don't know how much these ideas of chasing the 200 students is going to reap us the benefit. But I think I'm ready to sort of deal with the budget issue and the reality of it.
I think at this point, we're looking at both approaches, looking at feasibility and trying to understand what's the fiscal impact of adding programs or not adding programs. But we're also looking at preparing for the ongoing declining enrollment. As we mentioned before, we are working on scheduling next week. We're our budget stabilization committees and discussions with employee groups related to that, looking at our budget in detail, and then moving towards the establishment of priorities. We talk about what are the sacred cows. Well, what are they, and are there any? And should we be looking at programmatically, how do we ensure that as our enrollment declines, assuming they continue to decline, how do we constrict in terms of our expectations for expenditures commensurate with that decline?
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, colleagues, and thank you, presenters, for putting together such a detailed presentation. My first question has to do with regarding the Fullerton Joint students, Hospital that went to students that seemed to be, I think it was like 27 and 24 or so that were kind of being siphoned away. I'm wondering, are we planning to invite the 8th grade students and families from those two districts to our State of the District to be able to showcase what we have here? And if we also could invite maybe Nora La Mirada, Downey, El Rancho.
That sounds like a you question.
That's a conversation that we continue to have. Historically, there was call it a gentleman's agreement, call it an agreement amongst professionals that you don't recruit in people's backyards. We know that does occur for some of our adjacent high school bearing districts, and have continued to have that conversation about venturing into that arena. We have not fully committed to doing that. I would follow up with that conversation with our superintendent, Dr. Oviedo, on if that's the direction we're looking to head. That's a conversation I think amongst the board as well as with our superintendent should be had. We're always looking for kids. At what point do we stop? So this is about as good as I can do on that one.
I understand, thank you. And I'm aware of the gentleperson's agreement to not poach from other districts, and do the same dynamic with community colleges that we're very familiar with. The second question has to do with the housing development data. I think I remember noticing that there were Whittier City projects, so I'm wondering, does this account for any potential housing developments in unincorporated LA County that could be in our service area? I just didn't see, maybe the Whittier City ones, that the Whittier City School District, some of that could be unincorporated Whittier, but we just don't know by looking at the slide, so I'm wondering if.
I'd have to refer back to the full study. I know that these were those that were cited to be included in projections, and I said there were other residential developments that were not included specifically in the projections based on where they were in their phasing. So I can take a look back at that.
Okay, thank you. And then my last comment, and I'll close, is just an observation about our discussion about the CTE programs. And I'm familiar with how expensive sometimes it is to start a CTE program because of the equipment, right? All the upfront capital expenses that you have. And we do have a bond, thanks be to God, for our voters. And there also is Perkins funds out there. And then the other thing that I'm aware of is, because of my day job, I'm constantly going after federal appropriations funding. Now they're called, they've changed names so many times, congressionally directed